and you guys get to touch it. So that's kind of cool. Let me share my slideshow here with you. Feel free to ask questions along the way. You might want to take notes on particular things in the slideshow. Might make your life easier later. Just a thought. Okay, we can see integumentary system and pathologies. Pathologies is also something we will discuss. Pathologies are diseases associated with that system. So we will later discuss, actually you guys will later discuss pathologies of the integumentary system, but we're not there yet. So let's talk about the integumentary system. Hair, skin, and nails. As Ms. Routson just told us, hair, skin, and nails, and the associated glands of the skin. So your skin is actually your largest organ in your body, and this is kind of exciting because it means that you guys get to massage and directly affect the largest organ in the body. You know, if I told you could reach in and massage a heart, you'd be like, that's pretty cool. A little gross, but pretty cool. This is kind of like that. You're getting to massage the largest organ in the body. It is 7% of the body weight of most people. It is also a place where we see epithelial tissue and connective tissue come together, which I know created some confusion on our first or second day of class. And so we'll talk about that. Remember the 4 main tissue types? Does anybody remember the 4 main tissue types in your body? Please, Ms. McDowell, what are they?
The epithelial tissue, the nervous tissue, the muscle tissue, and connective tissue.
Yeah. So in some ways, the integumentary system contains, actually in some ways the integumentary system contains all 4 of those tissues. So I'm not really big into like memorizing just strange little facts about systems and things like that. We will do a little bit of that because sometimes it's a little bit important. But I really want you to more conceptually understand how stuff works, because conceptual understanding is power. But so let me give you just a real quick conceptual understanding. Can we see back here? You don't have to see great back here, just kind of see. Okay. But your skin is made out of 3 main layers. The first layer is made out of epithelial tissue. And remember, epithelial tissue was the stuff that coats things. Epithelial tissue is the stuff that coats things. Now, that layer is actually called the epidermis, but it's made of epithelial tissue. By the way, epithelial and epidermis. Do you know what epi means? This will be important later. Epi means upon, like on top of. So the epithelial tissue is the tissue that covers on top of stuff. And the epidermis, which we're going to very soon learn is the first layer of skin, is the top layer. It's the layer upon the other layers. That's where epi comes from. And we see it a lot in anatomy. That's why I'm bringing it up. So underneath here you have the dermis layer, but believe it or not, the dermis layer is connective tissue. How many ends are in connective? Connective layer. And the last layer is also connective tissue. It's an adipose layer mainly, which is fat, but it's connective tissue. Your fat is part of your connective tissue. It's in a lattice network. You want your fat to be in a lattice network, otherwise your stomach would be where your ankles are. And that's not attractive. We need our stomach to stay where our stomach is and all that kind of stuff. So your fat, which is a good thing, is in a lattice network too, so that it provides cushioning and things like that for your body. But I just want to explain to you, this is a world where epithelial and connective tissue come together. Epithelial is the top coating, and then there's connective tissue underneath that kind of hooks it to the body, creates a strong lattice network that holds it all together. Now, I said the other 2 tissues were in there, nervous and muscular. actually have nerve endings running up through your skin. And the way I know that you have nerve endings coming up to your skin is because I can feel my cheek with my finger and my cheek. And that's because there's nerve endings in my skin. The other thing that's in your skin is you've got these neat little hairs that come out of your skin, and every single one of those hairs has a muscle attached to it. So your muscular system's in there too. As I said, all the muscles, all the systems kind of blend in. So anyway, endocrine system, hair, skin, and nails. Oh, I almost hesitate saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. 5 years from now, you might only remember this slide, and that's okay. It really is basically okay. 5 years from now, I want you to at least remember the integumentary system is skin, hair, nails, glands associated with skin, which are sweat and oil glands. You should just know that. As a medical practitioner, you should know the definition of an integumentary system for the rest of your life. It's okay if you can't name every single epithelial layer and all that kind of stuff that we're going to kind of look into here, but you should know some of the basics. Okay? Cool. We use our skin for all sorts of amazing stuff. It is part of your immune system. Now, they don't necessarily include it in there, but they should, because it is the main barrier that keeps you from having disease come into your body. Right? It is the reason that essentially if you don't have a cut on your hand and the client doesn't have a cut on their body, that you are completely safe rubbing people with dangerous diseases even. Because your skin acts as a tremendous barrier. Tremendous barrier. Right? In fact, with COVID going around right now, I'm not worried about COVID getting through my skin. I'm worried about inhaling it into my body because that bypasses my skin. Or rubbing my eye. That's very different. But my skin is an excellent barrier. It is very rare, actually, that you hear somebody catch a disease directly through their skin, especially a dangerous disease. Most dangerous diseases are caught through some type of fluid transmission. And that could be all sorts of things, all right, just to be blunt. It could be the water particulates in the air, that kind of fluid that I'm inhaling. It could be sharing needle fluid. It could be sexual intercourse fluid. Those are the type of things that really, because they go past your skin barrier, just to be blunt. Massage therapists don't have that problem. So you can glove up if you have a client that you're worried about, but really, I can't think of a known case where somebody's caught something like AIDS or something through their skin. I remember when AIDS first came out and I worked on clients that were HIV positive, and without any risk at all, as long as I wasn't working on their open lesions and as long as I didn't have cuts in my hand too. The other thing is we're a high pressure system. When you cut me, stuff doesn't go in, it tends to spurt out. That's a good thing. It means it's hard for stuff to kind of get in because it's coming out. That's the way it's supposed to work. So your skin is an incredible immune system. In fact, the reason we have you guys wash your hands and stuff like that is because we're not worried about stuff getting into your hands at all. Leave it on your hands all day long. We're worried about you taking stuff from this client and putting on this client and then rubbing your eye. Because now you've transmitted stuff from this client to this client, that's not good for them, and now you put it past your skin barrier in your eye. That's why we have you wash your hands. Your skin's awesome. So just telling you that if you're somebody who worries about catching things. It is part of your protection, part of your immune system. It can absorb. There are some things that can get through the skin after everything I just told you. And for this reason, most massage therapists like to use lubricants with names that they can understand. And oils and lotions with things that, it's not a crazy idea to use coconut oil for massage, by the way. Coconut oil is edible. And the skin is absorbent, and so why wouldn't I rub stuff I can ingest onto my body? Plus, coconut oil is great to cook with, and it's good for your hair, and you can brush your teeth with it, and it's an antimicrobial, and it works great for massage. But that's just a side thing. Anyway, stuff to think about. Sensation. We wouldn't be massage therapists if it wasn't for all the sensors in our hands. You were going to notice your sensors getting more and more attuned, by the way, because you're going to feel for things that you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. And later you're going to be like, oh, I think I feel that thing. I remember them telling me that in massage school. when I first went. They were showing me stuff with my elbow, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, your elbow will become as sensitive as your fingers. I'm like, no, it won't. It did. He's right. You can feel all sorts of stuff because you get used to what the variance that you're feeling for. So sensation, really, really important. Temperature regulation, which is called thermoregulation. Temperature regulation. Thermoregulation. The ability to regulate my temperature. Your skin does it in two ways, actually. It's kind of cool. One way is it acts as an insulating barrier. Your bottom layer of skin is essentially an adipose layer, which means it's a fat layer, and that is good. It acts as insulation. You want some insulation on your body. So it helps keep heat in, and that's very helpful. And when you get too hot, it sweats and dissipates heat. So that's very good too. It also, in a way, I said two things, but in a way it does something also really fancy too, which is that your blood vessels to your skin can turn on or off. And so if you've ever been outside when it's really cold, your skin probably feels super cold because your body's not trying to keep your skin warm. It shut down the blood to your skin because, not completely, it doesn't want it to die, but it shuts it down because it doesn't want the blood out there. That's just cooling you off more. It actually closes it off, lets your skin get very cold and keep you insulated, because what it's trying to do is keep your core temperature warm from the outside world. Kind of cool. That blood shunting, what a lot of people call, also happens when you exercise. Your skin holds about 5% of the volume of blood in your body is in your skin right now. And sometimes when you exercise, your body says, we could really use some more oil running around the machine right now. And it will actually shut down some of the blood going to your skin. And so you'll find your skin is kind of cold sometimes when you're exercising, even though you feel hot. So cool stuff. Thermoregulation's a big one. Excretion, which is overdone a little bit. Your skin does excrete stuff, but people are always like, oh, you're sweating the toxins out. Well, all the research shows that you don't sweat out that much. But you do. You do. If you had a wild Friday night, about 1% of the alcohol you drank in this wild Friday night that I'm imagining you had comes out through your sweat. And so you might be able to smell it on somebody. There are some other things that come out of your skin, but it's just 1%. It's not a huge number. And vitamin D synthesis. You actually make vitamin D. I realize you can get pills of vitamin D, but you actually make vitamin D, and you make it with the help of the sun. And it is probably the reason that some of us are light-skinned and some of us are dark-skinned. If you are from originally, I don't mean your lifetime, but if your ancestry is from a location near the equator where there is lots and lots of sunshine, you need protection from the sun. You need lots of protection from the sun, and you don't need to produce as much vitamin D. If you live up on the poles where there's very little sunlight, you need very pale skin, because whatever sunlight is out, you want it to hit you, get through your skin, and make vitamin D. And we really believe that's the reason for differences in skin stuff. Hold on one second, Miss McDowell. Miss Walker, T, yes.
Sorry, I didn't know I did that.
Oh, okay. Miss McDowell.
I was reading, it didn't say anything about sunburns, so like my skin, even though it's very light and very pale, my skin doesn't even take sun. I'll go outside and I'll get sunburned. That's not just a comment to share.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's embarrassing, and my pastiness astounds me sometimes. And people are like, well, put sunblock on it. I put sunblock 4,000 on, and after 15 minutes, I'm not kidding you. Like, really, I'm like, I'm laying under a tarp, and 15 minutes later, I'm like, I'm burned. Yeah, it's a bummer. Yeah. I thought you were going to, though, take that question and be like, do we work on a client with a sunburn? So I'm going to assume that that's on your mind now. Do we work on a client with a sunburn? Essentially, the answer is yes. What type of contraindication would it be if, let's say, their arms are sunburned? What type of contraindication is that?
If there's like skin that's broken from the sunburn.
No, but we have different types of contraindication. We have general or absolute; those are really the same thing, and we have local contraindications.
So if the I don't know.
Okay, you don't have to know. It is a local contraindication. I might not rub their arms, right? By the way, this is all gray area. If their arms are mildly pink and they say it doesn't hurt, and okay, go ahead. But I'm talking about if they're really sunburned. If it's just their arms, you could just avoid their arms. Like, it's not an absolute or general contraindication. Absolute and general contraindications mean don't do the massage. Local means avoid that area. So sunburns tend to fall in the category, in general, of local contraindications. Don't rub that area if it's really sunburned, just because you'll irritate. Does that make sense? Yeah, maybe so. Okay. All right. Okay. So, I wish they would have given me a little bit more. Okay. Yes. Mr. Tate.
So, do you mind if I give a gratitude really quick? I know I hope it doesn't matter off subject. I just wanted to share something that I should have said before.
Okay, quickly.
So I got my audiobook for our class today because I have a learning disability. My short-term and my long-term memory is kind of fuzzy. So, well, it's bad. So I have audiobooks for it. I'm listening to it now, and I just thought you guys might want to be interested in it if you wanted help studying or something.
Cool.
Ability.
Thank you. Okay, we're about to look at the epidermis, but I wanted to put this information in your brain in a certain layers, right? So you have three main layers of skin: epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. Epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. By the way, just so we don't all get confused, there's then like 5 layers of epidermis too. So somebody might be like, no, you've got 7 layers, whatever. There are 3 main layers of skin. We're not going to learn all the sub-layers, because the epidermis has like 5 layers, depending on where on the body. But it's epidermis, dermis, hypodermis. There's actually 3 names for the hypodermis, 2 other names. Hypodermis, but I like this one because the dermis is here. The epidermis means epi, upon the dermis, and hypo means under. Think about a hypodermic needle. Hypodermic needle actually means it goes under the dermis. Hypodermic needle. Hypodermis. Hypo is low. Hyper is high, right? So hypo is below. So you got epidermis, dermis, hypodermis. Yeah? Cool, cool, cool. Okay. I already said this. The epidermis is composed of epithelial tissue. One of the 4 main tissues, right? Not the most common. Connective tissue is the most common. And it's relatively avascular. What does avascular mean?
Without blood?
Without blood. Vascular means with blood. A means without. A means without. Avascular. The top of my skin, this is my epidermis layer, is relatively avascular, which is why I can scrape it with my fingernail right now, and it doesn't feel really pleasant, but it's not bleeding. In fact, this top layer is dead. Really dead. In fact, most of the dust in your house, it's this stuff. Lots of it. You slough off a lot. You renew that top layer, I think, every 4 to 6 weeks. So you got a whole body laying around your house every, 2 months or whatever. It's disgusting. Yeah, you guys disgust me. Yeah. So it's sloughing off your body all the time, and little dust mites in your house are eating it and things like that. It's delicious. And it's relatively avascular. It's relatively avascular because skin, like everything else in life, grows from the bottom up. So the stuff way down here in the hypodermis and dermis, it's vascular. it's loaded with blood. And it grows cells and it actually pushes these cells up, which is cool because then the cells at the top are constantly getting replenished. And so they can handle getting scraped and sloughed off, and they tend to be waterproof up here and they protect me, but they're not really me. They're not the alive part of me, so I don't have to worry about stuff. But there's stuff growing underneath them constantly filling back up the space. So your skin grows from the ground up, from the inside out. And the top layer is dead because it's gotten so far away from the blood vessels by then it's no longer getting blood, and blood is life. Cool. So it's really being fed, the epidermis is really being fed by the dermis. Yeah. I'm going to talk briefly about the 5 layers of the epidermis, and you'll probably never hear me talk about them again, because from a massage therapist point of view, if we were estheticians, we'd really care. Massage therapist point of view, it's not that important to me. Here's why. By the way, the epidermis is actually kind of a thin layer, right? And the dermis is the thick layer. The epidermis is actually fairly thin. It's got 5 layers in some parts of your body, 4 layers in all parts of your body. It's got 5 layers, by the way, in your hands and feet. Your hands and feet have extra thick skin, which is convenient because we do stuff with our hands and feet, like walk around and grab hot stuff we shouldn't grab. And so you've got the top layer that you have everywhere in your body is this stratum corneum. And then you've got a layer that's only found in your hands and feet below that layer called the stratum lucidum. And then one underneath that called the stratum granulosum. And one underneath that called the stratum spinosum. And then the stratum basal. It's fascinating stuff, but not super important to your massage career. What happens in these 5 layers, honestly, is it's all the same cells eventually. The cells in the stratum basal grow and move up and become cells in all the other layers. So every layer moves up to the other layers. Eventually the cells move through all those layers. This is really the life steps of an epidermis cell, really coming from the dermis. That's all it is. And they've layered all these different layers. They become flatter and deader as they go up. But just remember it's the epidermis. Epidermis, 5 layers. Good. Cool. True. I wouldn't lie to you. I just talked briefly about melanin. But melanin is what produces dark pigment that Miss McDowell and I do not have. Right? Except for possible little stray dots of it, which we call freckles. The beauty is if you drop us off in the Antarctic, we're still going to get vitamin D. The downside is if you drop us off in Phoenix on a bright sunny day, we're going to die. That's how it works. Okay. And by the way, melanin has a really positive effect to it. It's a very beneficial thing. It reflects UV lights, and too much sunlight is very, very bad for you. The radiation from the sun actually really does change the genetic makeup of your skin, which can lead to skin cancer. It can also lead to poorly forming skin. So like, they talk about this, I hate this term, but they talk about people that, sunbathe too much having kind of leathery skin, and it's true. Because the sunbathing is really hard on their skin over time. It really does. It really ruins the elasticity of it and such. It's not great for you. Everybody needs a little bit of sun. Shouldn't have a lot of sun. That's kind of how it works. And if you're really light skinned, you have to go really light on sun. If you're darker skinned, you can have much more sun, which is nice. Yeah. Yeah. So keratinocytes let me explain something here for a second. I don't want to do this, yeah. The word sites means cells. You're going to hear it all the time in anatomy. Sites, 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 sites. Keratinocytes are a type of cell. They're a very tough cell. They're a very tough cell, and they're the majority of your epidermis is keratinocytes. And one of the benefits of them is even when they're dead, they mix with your oil, which we'll get to here in a second, your sebum, that's your natural body oil up here, and they create the waterproofing barrier for your skin. Waterproofing barrier for your skin. In fact, there's a lot of interesting research to suggest that really some of the best things you could do for your skin are not directly to your skin. What I mean by that is this. We think that when you put lotion on your skin and you go, oh my gosh, my skin's so soft afterwards, we're like, yes, it is. You just hydrated dead skin cells. Just like if you put oil on a paper bag, the paper bag would be softer. But it's still a paper bag. So you're lotioning up dead skin normally when you lotion up skin. There's very little evidence that you're doing much of anything else for it. You might be slowing down oil production in your body because your body will sense that it's looped up and it will produce less oil, but that's not necessarily a good thing. But good nutrition seems to have a lot to do with healthy skin. And so there's a lot of thought that in the future you might go to your esthetician and get supplements instead of all the stuff they're doing to your face. In fact, a lot of the stuff they do in aesthetics is actually not trying to put some miracle thing on your skin to make your skin better. They're usually trying to get rid of your epidermis. Why would they want to do that? Anybody? They want to get rid of your epidermis because it makes your dermis make more skin cells. So this whole idea of face peels and exfoliation and everything like that is what you're trying to do is increase the slough off rate so your body's smart and it goes, oh my God, we need more skin cells, and it grows more, and those ones tend to look more young because they're newer. They are younger. And so the idea is that you tear off the stuff on top and you get young skin cells to come up. All right. We're not going to worry about that or that, and you'll be glad we didn't. I do want you to look at this picture here. It's a really good picture. So you'll notice the epidermis layer. It's labeled on the right-hand side. You'll notice that the epidermis layer is actually very thin, and the dermis is the bulk of your skin. And underneath is the hypodermis, which is just a thin layer, although on some people it's thicker. Depends how much adipose tissue you have in there, which is a nice word for fat. But some of the other stuff I want you to notice is this hair follicle, and next to it is the sebaceous oil gland. Sebaceous gland. Sebaceous glands are your body's natural oil glands, and they secrete oil that keeps your hair and your skin supple. And you have those associated with every single hair follicle on your body. You'll also notice there's a muscle next to it, to this hair follicle on the other side, called an erector pili muscle. And it really is there to control whether that hair stands upright or not. And there's still some debate about why that is. We think it might be an attempt to keep yourself warm, things like that, like when you get goosebumps, things like that. You will also, I don't know if it's in here, it should be, but it's not. There's also a nerve associated with every single hair on your body, which is why you can just like blow across your arm and if you just hit, or like a little fly, have you ever been there and a little fly lands, a little hair, and you can feel it because there's actually a nerve going to every single hair on your body. Cool, cool, cool. We'll talk about sweat glands here in a second. And these corpuscles you see are nerve sensors. We'll talk about those in a minute too. Okay. So, I don't even like this slide. It says the epidermal dermal junction. This is where the epidermis meets the dermis. Of course, and they just gave it a name. It's not really that important. The epidermis is sitting on top of the dermis. That's it. That's it. That's it. Okay, so let's talk about the dermis. So we talked about the epidermis. It had 5 layers, and yet it's still very, very tiny. It's mostly dead skin. It's avascular. We are now getting down to the dermis, the thickest part of your skin. It's highly vascular. Yeah? Any of you with ink here, in order to have a good tattoo, they had to go through the epidermis and get to the dermis. They can't give you a tattoo in your epidermis. You know why? Because it's gone in 4 weeks. They have to scar your dermis to give you a tattoo. They actually have to get the ink down into the dermis, the dermal layer, to give you a tattoo. It's a thicker region. They say some people call it true skin. I don't ever remember that, but whatever. And it's got dendritic cells in it, which are immune cells. So remember I said the skin is its own integumentary system, but it really should be part of the immune system too. It's got dendritic cells in it, which are cells that are meant to look for foreign invaders and attack them. So it's extra protection in your skin in case you do cut yourself. And in case something burrows down in there. In case these things happen, you've got some guys on the front line there to try to protect you. Yay. Okay. All right. The dermis layer is connective tissue. And all connective tissue has some cool qualities to it. It's all a little bit different, but it all has collagen and elastin in it. This is true about your fascia. This is true about your tendons and your ligaments. And collagen and elastin are amazing. So, these are just fibers that run through your skin. And honestly, I mean, this isn't exactly true, but it's pretty close. It's a pretty good way to look at it. Collagen is honestly like small steel wires, like rebar running through your skin. Except pound for pound, collagen is stronger than steel. So these tiny little wires are tough. They're tough. Like, it's amazing, some of the stuff in your body, because we always think, oh, steel's the toughest thing ever. Actually, pound for pound, there's loads of stuff in your body that's stronger than steel. Mother Nature's way outbeat us so far. But you don't want steel skin. It's good if you don't want to make any facial expressions, but if you want to smile and do stuff, you've got to have some other flexibility in your skin, and that's where elastin comes in. And honestly, elastin is like cut up rubber bands in your skin, in your connective tissue. This is true of fascia too. This is the stuff we're going to be working with. Now, this collagen and this elastin are floating around inside the dermis, inside cells inside there and stuff like that. And it gives it those two qualities. It gives it the quality of being strong so it doesn't tear, but also elastic so it snaps back. Yeah. And some of you are a little younger than me. And young people tend to have a little bit more collagen in their skin. And it's why their face looks better than this. Actually, I don't know. It might not have looked good 20 years ago either. But the point is, collagen is what gives you that nice, snappy kind of look to your skin where it's bouncing back. It's one of the things we look for in clients. And this is why I care about the integumentary system. It's one of the main ways I judge somebody's health. Not judge them. Don't care if they have pimples. Don't care if their makeup's done well. I'm talking about judging their general health. Skin tells you a lot. It's the largest organ in the body, and when it looks funky, something's wrong with the entire system. Now, When it looks funky in one area, like black and blue, we call that a bruise or a contusion, and that is a local contraindication. And I go, oh, okay, and I avoid your bruise, right? But when you come in and you look yellow, that's actually a sign that you're having liver failure. It's a pretty serious problem. When you look blue, that's a sign you're not getting enough oxygen to your body. The skin's the first thing that your body pulls back from when that's happening. And blue is a sign that you're not getting enough oxygen, and that can be a sign that you are choking, suffocating, having a heart attack, slowly dying in front of me, all sorts of things. Blue's not good. When your skin is really, really thin and not elastic at all, you're probably old, and that's fine, but it tells me that your general condition is old. So I'm looking a lot for how elastic your skin is. If I've worked on you for the last 50 years, I don't really care because I kind of know you now. But if you walk into my office and your skin's a little thin and it's not elastic at all and you're a little yellow, I'm actually now worried about your general health. And you're like, I love deep tissue. I know you don't know me, but just go on. I'm like, no, that's not happening. And I'm pretty crazy, but that's not happening. Because it gives me a general guideline. I don't care what people's age are. Look at their skin. Look at their skin. Okay. Collagen and elastin. Don't forget that stuff. It's the basis to all fascia. There's one other ingredient in all fascia, which is something called ground substance, but we'll get to that later. It's the stuff that the collagen and elastin float in. It's like the jello that they float in this incredible adobe concrete jello mixture that your body has. It's absolutely delightful. Dermis. I'm not going to worry about this. I will say this really quickly. So when your skin actually tears and stuff like that, you generally build scar tissue there. And that is your body putting extra collagen in that area to make it stronger. So scar tissue is not a bad thing. Scar tissue is your body saying, wow, like, wow, we were not ready for this. And it's not going to just grow back your skin. If I get a little paper cut, my body goes, it's a paper cut, it really heals that. If I tear something, it tends to think we really need to repair this area extra strong. And so it puts in lots and lots of collagen, which creates this not so attractive skin, but it's really strong. That's the whole idea behind scar tissue. Okay. Now, we just talked about the epidermis and the lovely dermis. We're now down to the last layer that I called the hypodermis. That is one legitimate name for it. I don't think this is on the slide. Do they have? They don't. It's also called the subcutaneous layer. Subcutaneous. I think it's O-U-S. I don't know. Subcutaneous layer, but that's not what I like to call it. It's the superficial fascia layer. All three of those are legitimate. So what does super mean? That's right. Thank you. One person who mouthed it. It means above. You just got to make it to Thursday, everybody, please. It means above. So, why is the superficial fascia below everything? Why is it called superficial fascia if it's above? You're right about it being above. That's what it means, too.
Is it because that's the layer, the most superficial layer where the fascia starts?
Yeah, you nailed it, sir. So let me explain what he just said. Good job, by the way. This is very important to body workers, which is what you all are. So, we've got the epidermis, right? Epidermis. Epi means upon. It is the layer upon the dermis. We can call the next layer the hypodermis, which would be correct because it means underdermis. Upon dermis or above dermis, underdermis. That is true. But we can also call this is it superficial? Superficial fascia. Superficial fascia, because it is the bottom layer of skin, but it is the uppermost layer of fascia. What? Yes. It is the first layer of fascia. It is your skin underneath your skin. Remember I said fascia is everywhere? Well, this is your first layer. Underneath this layer, you've got fascia around groups of muscles. Underneath that layer, you've got fascia around individual muscles. Underneath that layer, you've got fascia around muscle fibers. Oh, and bones here too. Underneath that fascia, you've got fascia around individual single little fibers everywhere. So you've got about, I don't know, 7 layers of fascia or something. Nobody knows. You got a lot. So that's why they call it superficial fascia. It's your first layer of fascia. It is your bottom layer of skin, but it's your top layer of fascia. So we're just talking about the skin. There's all this fascia underneath that is wrapping around stuff in your body, keeping it all together, keeping it all working, all that good stuff. So I like calling that layer superficial fascia because I like to remind us all that we're working with fascia. That's the only reason I like to call it that. And I will be calling on you guys. I'll be like, what are the 3 layers of skin? Epidermis, dermis, hypodermis. And I'll be like, what are the 3 names for the last layers? Hypodermis, subcutaneous, and superficial fascia. That stuff I would like to stick with you forever. Epidermis, dermis, hypodermis, superficial fascia, subcutaneous. Yes. Cool. Cool. The subcutaneous layer has lots of nerves in it, just like the dermis does. Lots of blood vessels. Because it's got nerves in it, it can sense things like stretch and such. So that's actually a bigger deal than you might realize. You guys take it for granted that you know where your arms and hands and limbs are in space without looking at them. And you do. You know exactly where they are. But you're doing that through stretch receptors. Your brain is actually talking to you and telling you like, hey, your arm is at 90 degrees right now. Yeah. You've also got adipose tissue in there, which again is just a nice word for fat, and connective tissue. Cool. Cool. Some stuff you might see in the massage room is, well, you're definitely going to see freckles. Albinoism. You will sometimes see people that cannot produce any melanin at all. My best friend Zane from my childhood was like that. Completely white hair. Couldn't go out in the sun at all. Nothing to be concerned about with massage whatsoever. Just no melanin producing things whatsoever. Vitiligo is nothing to worry about either. It is a partial loss of pigmentation and people tend to look very patchy when they have it. It looks unusual, but it's not a concern in the slightest. You will also sometimes see hyperpigmentation. They're saying here from pregnancy, and you'll often see it in like a pregnant client's belly, actually. Right down here is a fascial band, and it will sometimes get darker. It gets hyperpigmentation during pregnancy. Again, not a big deal to worry about at all. Yes, Mr. Blood.
Where does stretch marks come in?
Stretch marks come in from growing faster than the skin can grow. So we see them in all, by the way, if you start looking at people really carefully, you realize pretty much everybody's got stretch marks somewhere. So We will see them anytime somebody is growing faster than their skin can grow. So pregnancy, I mean, you might be putting on 50 pounds in a very quick amount of time. That can create stretch marks. Gaining lots of weight, going through puberty, taking steroids. All these things are great at causing stretch marks.
Yeah, I was asking because I've always associated stretch marks with like being fat or even like, pregnancy because the stomach stretches so quickly.
Yeah.
But then when I think about like sumo wrestlers and people from like the Highlands, they'll be just as big, but they won't have a single stretch mark on them.
Yeah. If you have gained it slow enough, you might not get a stretch mark. It's about speed. And by the way, it's about your genetics and your skin too. Some people just don't develop stretch marks very easily. Some people are very elastic. But it's about speed. If you can gain a lot of weight quickly, you're prone to get stretch marks. And maybe just in an area, maybe it's from weightlifting, right? You're just growing your pecs in that one area, you've got stretch marks. But the point is, it's the speed of growth in general. So let me make a side note, by the way, about do's and don'ts for a therapist when it comes to things you notice on a client. Because this gets people into a lot of trouble. You don't ever mention stretch marks. There's no point in mentioning them. There's no need to mention them. They're not a health risk. There's nothing. You just literally don't. And don't commiserate, oh, I've got that same thing. No, we don't mention it. We in general only mention things that we might think would be of concern to the client or they might think later we did. So let me give you an example. I'm working on somebody's back and I see a bruise. Now, I'm not even worried about the bruise. It's small. It's not a big deal. But I'm going to say, oh, does this bruise hurt? I don't even care if it hurts. I'm asking the client that so later that night when their husband or wife sees that bruise, they don't think I gave it to them. So I point it out for that reason. And I kind of care if it hurts. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean like I don't care. But I'm not worried. It's not a major medical thing. We're talking about a bruise. But I want them to know that I saw it. So I'm like, oh, does this bruise hurt? 99% of the time, they're like, oh, I didn't even know I had one. Oh, yeah, but as long as it doesn't hurt, I'll even rub it if it doesn't hurt. Because some old bruises shouldn't rub a new bruise, but if it's truly not hurting and it doesn't look that bad, it's not even a big deal. I just want to make sure they're aware of it. Because if they're not, they will come back to you and they'll be like, I got a bruise. And you'll be like, I saw that before. And they're like, well, you didn't mention it. So that's a good thing. Mention any bumps. Because I know of many cases now where massage therapists have save people with cancer. So if I find a bump on some area of your body where I'm pretty sure you don't know it's there, like your back of your legs, any place where I think you just don't know, I'm going to say, oh, do you know you have a little bump here? And the minute you say that, people go, what is it? I don't know. It's probably nothing, but you should get it checked out. It's always probably nothing, but you should get it checked out. I don't want to freak you out because, by the way, 99% of the time, it is nothing. But working in a spa, and we're actually 2 places I worked, we've received letters from people who wrote back and said, thanks, and when I got it checked out, it was cancer. You probably saved my life. Didn't know that. Saw my back, didn't know, right? So we always mention those. And that's about it. Be very careful mentioning about, you might say something to a client and think it's a compliment, like, hey, nice ink, or whatever. Not all people take it that way. It's not yours to comment on, so be very, very careful. Be very careful commenting on people's physiques, even if it's a compliment. It's not a good idea. It often is taken the wrong way. It can be, it makes them, it does all sorts of weird stuff. If I compliment you on your physique, you're like, well, what is this guy checking me out? Like, that's not cool. Like, yeah, it was a nice thing to say, but okay, so I'm in great shape. Like, what does that mean? That's weird. Like, that's why you don't want to say that. The other thing is people start going, well, what about the parts he doesn't like? Like, what's he thinking now? Is that how he thinks about me? I'm not thinking about my client that way, and I want them to think, I'm thinking about, like, are you loose or tight, and should we get your shoulders back down out of your ears? That's why I just want you to be very careful. You want to be super friendly, but don't bring up stuff they haven't brought up. Now, when they bring up the tattoo on their arm, talk about it. They've made it fair game. But anyway, so the stuff I mentioned is bruises that I might get blamed for and strange anomalies that I think might be of concern to them that they should know about and get checked out and not freak out about too. Questions about that? It's actually fairly important. Yes, Ms. McDowell.
Like how would you know like moles? Because I'm light, so I get like moles and freckles. Like how are you supposed to know? I mean, I know that that's not our thing, but I mean, is there like a warning sign, like if the mole's weird, that we would say something to a client?
There is, and again, we're not qualified, right? But more like, let's suppose you've got moles on your body. I've never seen them, but let's suppose if I'm working on you and I've already passed 13 moles, I'm not mentioning any of them, right? You know you've got moles, right? So, but if I find just one on your back and it looks irregular and prominent, I'm going to mention that, right? That's how I would deal with it. And I would say something very innocuous like, oh, is this mole sensitive? I just want to make sure I don't bump into it. Oh, yeah, I didn't even know I had that. Oh, okay. Wow, what is that? Look okay? I said, I don't know. Like, you should get it checked out just to be on the safe side. It never hurts. Yeah. But if you see like somebody, like I've worked on people with moles all over the place. I'm like, I'm not going to tell them about all these. They already know. They know they've got to check their moles. Or I've worked on people with adipocytes. Remember, site means cell. It's not up there anymore. Site means cell, and adipose means fat. And they've got, some people call them lipomas. They're fatty cysts. They're fatty tumors. And you can't even see them. By the way, many, many, many people have them. So if you're one of them, don't feel bad. Many people have them. And some people, you can't see them, but you can feel them. You start rubbing along your skin, you're like, oh, there's a bump, there's a bump, there's a bump. People with lots of them know. They just know. And they're not of any concern at all. But if I was rubbing along on you, Miss McDowell, on your leg, and I found one single bump under your skin, I would mention that. But if I found 35, I'd be like, she knows. She's got these little fatty tumors around her body. They're completely innocuous. Very common, by the way. That is the other thing. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Blygen, please.
Just while you're on the top of that comment right there. So, is there a way to differentiate between that type of adipose, thing under the skin and a knot? Because if we're thinking that we're feeling a knot and we're like working it, how can we tell the difference between something like that?
I think they're superficial. They're not deep. They're kind of on the top layer. I have a little one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm laughing because my girlfriend has one single one on her body and she hates it. You can't even see it, but you can feel it. They move with the skin, sir.
Okay.
So they move with the skin. You can tell they're not the muscle. But I will say the other reason I was nodding my head really big is this is why you guys want to know your anatomy well. Because it's really cool when you can be like, I know what's supposed to be there, and this thing ain't supposed to be there. So you know the bump is not just in the skin, you know it's in the muscle and things like that. Things that tend to be deeper tend to be of more concern. But yeah, these are in the skin, and you can move them. They won't move by themselves, but they'll move with the skin, and they're separate from the muscle underneath. You could basically kind of pick them up if you had to. They feel separate. They feel like which is what they are, a tumor in the superficial fascia in the adipose layer of the dermis. That's what they are there. Yeah. Good question. Again, your job is not to figure this stuff out. You're not qualified. I'm not qualified. But your job is to be kind enough to just, let somebody know that there's something on their back that they may not be aware of, So that happens a lot. And lots of people, nobody's looking at their back. I don't care if they're married. I don't care what's going on in their life. How often does your spouse just stare at your back and look for stuff? Whereas your massage therapist just stared at your back for 30 minutes to 60 minutes, just your back, and felt everything. Your spouse might rub your back and be like, oh, honey, love you. They're not doing what we are. You're literally giving somebody a cancer screening through their whole body pretty much, right? So that's what's kind of cool about it. Just remember that jaundice, when it comes to skin color, which is yellow skin, can be a sign of some real problem. It's a sign that somebody's usually having some liver problems. It can be very serious at that point. If somebody's liver is bad enough that it's because, by the way, bile's getting backed up and it makes them turn yellow. It's pretty bad by that point. I don't know that you're going to have a client come to you that way, but I just want to let you know. Occasionally, by the way, you will get clients with who've taken keratin pills along with their tanning to look darker, and they'll have a little orange thing, but that's not yellow. They look orange. That's totally different. That's just funny. Hyperemia. Hyperemia is a really important word. Those of you in Mr. Ibarra's lab will hear it all the time. He's very fond of the word hyperemia, and for very good reason. He believes, he's right, by the way. I'm not making fun of him. He's right. You are trying in your massage to create hyperemia. Hyperemia is vasodilation. It means the blood vessels have been dilated and blood is rushing to the surface, and you are probably doing your job. Hyperemia is redness in the skin. And in general, from massage, we like to see it, right? So that's stuff caused by you. We're talking about stuff caused by, hyperemia can mean anything, but in massage, you'll have like Mr. Ibarra, I just know because I've seen him do this. He'll walk by and he'll be like, oh, that's really good hyperemia there. Meaning you really got the back warmed up, it's all red, there's red streaks down the back, and he's like, yeah, that's hyperemia.
Is that what's caused by when we do skin rolling?
Yeah, you'll get hyperemia with skin rolling too. The skin gets all pink and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, and obviously hyperemia is easier to see on somebody who's light skin than somebody who's dark skin, but that's what hyperemia is. It's the skin getting redder. And it's a good thing, and you'll hear it. It's just one of those massage terms that you should know. Hyperemia. Lots of blood in the skin. Good stuff. We like to see it. Cyanosis is not good. Cyan, blue skin. Again, this blue skin is probably a 911 call. If you're seeing that kind of stuff, I'd be calling the doctor. Especially if they're having a hard time breathing at the same time. That's like heart attack and pulmonary embolisms and horrible stuff. Very unlikely you're going to see this. Luckily, most people when they're feeling pretty bad don't come for their massage, but if you did, blue skin is somebody slowly suffocating. Call 911. The other term you'll hear in massage is ischemia, which is decreased blood flow. Quite often, knots in your muscle cause ischemia. The knot is so tight, the muscle is so tight that blood's getting decreased and the blood flow is getting decreased, and that's ischemia. And we don't like that. We're trying to fix that. I don't really have much to say about hair. Hair and nails are roughly made out of the same stuff. They really are. I know they're in two different forms, but your nails and hair really are basically the same stuff. And in massage, we don't really deal with those things that much, except avoiding them and all that kind of stuff. Keeping our nails short and trying not to irritate our clients' hair and things like that. I already told you about the erector pili. Again, not a super big massage fact. I just think it's going to be on your test. To be very honest with you, I was trying to be nice here. But you do have muscles attached to every single hair follicle. And this is kind of where you get the experience of goosebumps from. Just a side fact to know. Yeah. Let's see. No. Let's remember about nails. Why do massage therapists keep their nails very, very short?
So you don't get other people's skin under there and pass it to somebody else.
Thank you. I was worried that somebody was going to say, well, for client comfort, and that's 100% true. Most people don't like little nitpicky pain. They're kind of okay with deep tissue for that kind of deep ache, but they don't actually like scratch. So that's a good reason. But Miss McDowell is right. The real issue is that these are the things that tend to carry stuff to other people. Yeah, it's kind of gross. Don't do it. Keep your nails short. Wash your hands. Brush your teeth. Eat your vegetables. Okay. Sweat glands and skin glands and stuff like that. So you have, in a way, 3 different glands on your skin. 2 big categories. You've got sebaceous glands. These are oil glands, and sebaceous glands very conveniently secrete sebum, which is your body's natural hydrating, lubricating oil for your skin. Boom. You'll actually hear this term sometimes. People will be like, oh, you should use jojoba oil for massage because jojoba oil is the most similar to your body's own sebum. I don't know if that's true, but that's why they're saying it. They're like, so it's the closest thing that your body has to its own natural oils and such. So you'll sometimes hear people talk about massage products and things like that in terms of the fact that they mimic the sebum from your sebaceous glands in your skin. And those are your body's natural oil glands, which are a good thing. Yeah. Sudoriferous glands are sweat glands, and you've got eccrine and apocrine glands. Eccrine are the ones you think about that cool you down, that you have everywhere. And most people sweat, even on a cool day, about a half a pint of water every day, even if they're not exercising. Eccrine are the ones that cool you down. Apocrine glands are sweat glands, but they're sweat glands in our genitalia area, in our armpits. It's a different type of sweat, by the way. It tends to be a little bit more oily. And for some reason, it's a sweat that bacteria really likes to feed on. And so when we smell body odor, you're actually not smelling their sweat. You're smelling the bacteria feeding on their sweat. So in general, it's the time lapse that's occurred there where they've sweat and then bacteria's fed on that sweat and the bacteria does not smell delightful. That's where body odor is coming from. Do you have a question, Ms. McDowell, or are you just stretching out your hand? Okay. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know. I thought it might be a new signal we had. Okay. That's that. I already said this. Sebum produced by sebaceous glands. Sweat glands do regulate your body temperature. It's quite amazing. They're a Mr. System for your body. Your body temperature can go up and down quite a bit, but your core temperature cannot change by much more than about 5 degrees, or really bad things happen. 10 degrees, you're dead as a doornail. That's your core temperature, what's going on in here. Your arms can get very hot or very cold. They can fluctuate by 30 degrees either direction. It won't be pleasant, but you'll be fine. But it's your core temperature. So your body uses your arms and legs and your skin all the time to like shut down blood to them to keep your warmth in here, or push blood out to them to get rid of heat. Because you can't overheat either. You'll literally cook your brain. People that don't sweat have real problems with this. You have to be very careful. I think we already said all this. Eccrine sweat glands. There's a cute little picture. Let's talk about thermoregulation. When we started this talk, we said that thermoregulation was one of the main things that your skin does. Remember, it produces vitamin D. Thermoregulation protects you from the outside world, has your sensory organs in there, all sorts of wonderful stuff like that. There are 2 things that your thermoregulation is trying to avoid, and that's hypothermia and hyperthermia. And I'd like you to remember this, but I'd also like you to remember hypo and hyper, because they come in handy a lot in massage. We already learned about the hypodermis. Hypo always means below, and hyper always means what you think it means. Hyper, above, hyper, Tapscott, hyper, right? Hyperthermia is when you have too much heat. Hypothermia is the one you hear about more. You often hear about hypothermia, people exposed to the elements, but oftentimes in athletic events. Because what happens is I'm on my bicycle, pedaling along, it's cold outside, I'm expending lots of energy, and I run out of the energy necessary to keep me warm. And so my temperature can drop. It's hypothermia, and it's a real problem. And if you need to wrap me in a blanket and give me some food and have me stop biking. But that's where you hear about it the most. And that's somebody's core temperature dropping, hypothermia, and usually the problem is they don't have enough energy to get it back up again too. There's a reason it dropped. It could just be because they were outside. I don't know, for some strange reason. But usually it's associated with they've been hiking outside, they're running out of energy, and now they're cold, and now they don't have energy to stay warm and all that kind of stuff. Cool. Yeah? Okay. I know. It's a long lecture. I'm sorry. I really am. Oh no. So, I'm sorry, I went, oh no, because they're trying to tell you about what areas of the brain you receive certain stimulation in. I don't think you're ever going to use this information, ever, in your life. But, important thing to know about skin receptors are you got little nerves in your skin and in your dermis and in your hypodermis and all that good stuff. And these little wires, these nerves that go back to your brain, have different receptors on them. Some are meant to sense pressure. They're the reason I know I'm pushing in my face. Some sense pain. Some sense vibration. They all sense different things. Each little wire has a different sensor on the end of it. And your brain actually puts all that together to figure out what you're feeling. So when you guys are massaging somebody, you're using multiple sensors in your fingertip to tell about how much pressure there is, how much pull there is, how much stretch there is, all that kind of stuff. And that's all found in your skin receptors. Yeah, let me explain this. So the post-central gyrus is an area in your brain that receives touch sensation. And I think the reason, and I like this reason, I think the reason your book is making a big deal out of it is they want you to realize how much of your brain is set aside just for touch and sensation, and the way it's divided up. So if you look at this very strange picture here, look how much of your brain is literally left to just feeling your face. There's about as much area of your brain for your face as there is for your hands, arms, elbows, neck, trunk, legs, and feet. Faces are very sensitive. That's why little babies like to put stuff in their mouth, because these are very sensitive. It's like why we like to kiss, because lips are very sensitive. You've got a big part of your brain set aside for this stuff. Look how much is set aside for hands too, quite a bit. Our hands are meant to be very sensitive for working on people. And notice that feet actually have more set aside for them than really legs and things like that, and even your trunk. People's backs aren't that sensitive. I know they can feel things there, but they're not that sensitive, not like their face. If I put an elbow in your face, you'd say, stop. But I put an elbow in your back, you're happy with that. Yeah. Anyway, that's why they mentioned this thing called the post-central gyrus, which I'm sorry, like it's cool, but we're never going to talk about it again. You're never going to mention it your entire massage career, and I've now just taken 3 minutes from your life that you will never get back again. Sorry. So these nerve endings that I was just trying to tell you about that your brain in this area interprets, it looks for all sorts of different types of information, and this gets into the nervous system, but it's kind of cool. These nerve wires really only send a signal down and say if a sensor got turned on or turned off. And a nerve wire only has one sensor on it. And when you're getting a sensation, it's because 7 or 70 wires are firing and telling your brain stuff. So you might have a Merkel disc on the end of a wire, and those are very sensitive to light touch. So my Merkel disc is going off right now. But believe it or not, when I push it hard, it doesn't go off. Other sensors go off. This is how my brain differentiates between like, oh, somebody's stroking your face lightly. Oh, somebody's punching you. These are different things to your brain. It's actually not the same sensor doing that. The light sensor doesn't go off when you hit it hard. It just doesn't do anything. It's not designed to. Nociceptors are at the end of nerve things too, and their job is to sense damage. They're there to really be like, oh my God, something's actually happened to the cells in this area. We actually have damage. Those are your pain receptors. They're meant to tell the brain, like, forget about light touch, forget about hard touch, forget about any of that stuff. We're being damaged. The ones we really care about are mechanoreceptors, because mechanoreceptors give you feedback about the mechanics of your body. And they literally tell me stuff like how fast I'm moving, how much stretch I have, how far this joint will go, how far it's going right now. And I can close my eyes and actually know where my arm is, which we're like, of course you can, but why? Why do I know my arm is out here with my eyes shut? It's because of mechanoreceptors. My brain literally says, here's where your arm is. I can tell it's stretched out this far. I can tell this joint stretched out that far. I can tell it's moving this fast. It's really what gives you your sense of being in space. Those are mechanoreceptors. Yeah, that's it. So we're going to get into some of this in the nervous system, which is all these receptors. But don't forget, nociceptors are your pain receptors. When they get set off, it's one of the reasons you don't go in fast on a client on your moves, because it sets off a nociceptor. Because they sense something coming in fast and hard, and they assume it's going to be damaging. And it tends to set off a nociceptor, and when people's nociceptors set off, emotionally they lock down, but physically they lock down too. They tighten up and they respond that way. If you go in slow, you tend to not set off nociceptors. That's why we go in slow. I mean, it's also safer for the client, but that's why we do it. Yeah. Just about done here, I promise. I promise. I promise. Yes. So, no, we're not going to do this. Let's release your homework. It's not a lot, I think, for tonight. Let's do it. Let you guys work on it. And I have another little tiny assignment I hate to tell you to add to it, but let's see. This one's not long. Give me a second here. Okay. Bear with me. All right. Okay. You have a teeny tiny little 10-point quiz on the integumentary system. I would take it right now because I have one more assignment for you, but I open that up so that you can take a look at it. Good. Okay.
Mr. Tapscott,
Yeah.
since my phone kicked me off for a little while there, do we only have the chapter 22 test?
Well, no, you have one little assignment I'm about to give you on top of that. But you mean this number 14 quiz, MT22?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, got one other tiny thing I'm about to give you.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, bear with me. All right, good. Everybody, I hate to interrupt you. I sincerely do, because you're working on your test. But some of you are fast, and it's, by the way, I don't care if it takes you 10 years to take the test. There's no need to be fast in massage. But I also hate to have somebody waiting there and when they could be working on something. And you all have one more assignment on top of this test for tomorrow, and I need to tell you about it and show it to you. So let me do that really quick. I'm sorry. Let me present this to you and explain. Let me explain. So at the end of a lot of these chapters, we have pathologies, which are just common disorders of that system. And I get tired of hearing myself talk. And I hope today you have the same experience and you were tired of hearing me talk too. And so I very lazily give you some of my work to do. And I would like you guys to present on these things tomorrow. But hold on. Hold on. I am talking about 3 minutes, 2 minutes. I am not talking about you staying up and studying. I'm talking about Mr. Blygen saying, here's what's acne, here's what causes it, and is it a local or a general contraindication, or it just doesn't matter? I'm talking about flash bullet points. I mean, please take the 10 minutes it takes to study it, but I am honestly not talking about more than that. I really mean that. I would not give you one night to prepare for something like this. I mean, I am giving you one night to prepare for something like this, but my point is it's a very small thing. I do not consider this to be, it is going to drive your, if you have any social anxiety, you're going through the roof right now. But the fact is, sorry for those of you that know that I know that you have lots of social anxiety, but I am talking about you just stumbling through some stuff on this. So, Mr. Blygen will just tell us about acne. Mr. Brown, athlete's foot. Miss Estes, you got boils. I don't even know why you're making that face. I mean, boils is probably the best assignment here. Miss Hawks, bruises. I'm not expecting a dissertation. I'm really talking a few minutes, and I'm not timing you. I just want to walk away and be like, I know what acne is now, and I know if I should rub it or not. That's it. I know what boils are now, because the presentation was so great. Miss Karodi and Miss Zong, I put you together for the Miss Jong. I put you together for this first presentation because of the language barrier. I want to say something to all of you so that I'm really transparent. I am a big believer that fair does not equal equal. Fair does not equal equal. I think actually treating everybody equally is the worst thing a good teacher, a good manager can do. They do it, by the way, so they avoid getting sued. They do it so that you can't say, well, you let so-and-so, whatever, do this thing. But I believe you all deserve special accommodations. I believe all my clients deserve special accommodations, right? So I'm a really big believer in that, and I'm happy to ever discuss them and things like that. But obviously I am giving favoritism to these two students right now because I think it helps them. And if you were in that situation, I would honestly do it for you too. So please always feel free to, you can confront me in front of everybody, but you can also send me an email and say, I need this special accommodation. Here's why. Here's what makes it unique to me. Here's what makes it special. I'm totally happy to consider that. I honestly think it's the best way to go. We'll have some conflict, but you guys will be treated like the special individuals you are. So anyway, I just want to explain the method to my madness. Cold sores and fever blisters. Miss Lobitz. I mean, bam. I know. You can talk about it with your husband. That's always really good bedroom talk. Right before bed, talk about cold sores and fever blisters. And then be like a little kiss, honey. Decubitus ulcers. Miss Modest, oh my gosh. And you thought the week was over already. Eczema. Miss McDowell. I don't see you anymore. Oh, there you do. I see you. Good. Cool. Impetigo. Miss Munoz, impetigo. That's a great one. Mr. Placencia. I mean, lice. Probably one of the most dynamic, fun things to talk about. Psoriasis, Mr. Rydell. Miss Sarno, ringworm. We want to just know, what is ringworm? By the way, your presentations are best if they're explained at a 5-year-old level. I really mean that, right? Because people don't really understand stuff unless you can explain it to a 5-year-old. You know, I want to know, is ringworm really a worm? Is it in the shape of a ring? Do I wear it? Is it contagious? Can I rub it? These are things that a 5-year-old wants to know. Got it? Miss Allure, scabies. Kind of makes you itch just thinking about it. Miss Suriel, scars. Mr. Tate, dermatitis. Miss Trotter, shingles. Have you ever had shingles? No. Good fun. Good fun. Shingles are fun. Miss Routson, stretch marks. Miss Vincent, warts. Miss Walker T, lipomas. And Miss Walker Y, skin cancer. Speaking of not being fair, that was probably not fair. Miss Walker Y, I probably gave you the biggest thing there. I would like a 75-minute presentation on skin cancer. No, Miss Walker, really, it's just about like, would we, what might let us know it's skin cancer? Can we rub it? Things like that. We all want to walk away just being like, can I rub that? What was it? Cool? So please understand, and I also promise you this. I 100% promise this. They will be, if you guys just do mild preparation and actually speak, you'll get a perfect grade on this tomorrow. I'll talk to you later and be like, hey, next time, could you not read with the book up in front of your face? But we won't count off points for anything. If you do this project, you will get full points for it. No matter what. No matter what. I might make fun of you if it's really funny, but no matter what. So please don't stay up late tonight. I really mean that. I really mean that. Just go Google it, read it, and put it in your own words. That's it. Google, read, put it in your own words. And I shouldn't even tell you this, but also you might want to look in the back of the chapter of the book we're in too, because there's probably a paragraph on almost every single one of these. If your Google's broken. That's it. Yes, Miss Trotter.
Right, so we have to tell you what it is and then if we can massage it or not?
Yeah, I'm really big into the absolute and local contraindication. Absolute is like, don't rub this person at all. Like, they're on fire. Local is don't rub that area. And some of this stuff you guys are going to research and you're going to be like, it's nothing. It doesn't matter at all. You can rub it, you can not, it doesn't matter. But we want to know that because that's what we care about, right? Like when I come across this strange thing, can I work on it? And what is that strange thing without getting into the chemistry? You don't have to be here like, well, you know, down at this thing, the cell doesn't, no. Just like, you know, basic stuff. Basic stuff. Cool. Thank you. everybody?
Yeah, so
Yes, sir.
when I saw my name there, I thought Blygen was another like subcategory of acne, and I'd never heard that before, so that's why I had the face. I didn't realize that you were putting our name for that specific topic. So
Yes, sorry, you are not a subcategory of acne, but I'm going to remember that actually, and maybe not post the names that way, because you're right. I guess it really could look that way. Yeah. No, I don't associate any of you with any of these pathologies, and they were assigned essentially just in alphabetical order. Just cool. Cool. Does anybody need to see their assignment? Did anybody not see this?
Yeah, could you put it back for me, please?
Sure. Let's see. You are. Where are you? There you go, sir.
Mr. Tepscott?
Yes.